Just yesterday, Jack Daniel's announced the release of Batch 2 of its 12-year-old Tennessee whiskey and Batch 3 of its 10-year-old Tennessee whiskey. The expressions are the latest in the Jack Daniel's Age series, an annual release of age-stated expressions launched back in 2021 to honor the brand's whiskey-making traditions. Had no idea these were releasing in February. Last year, both of these were announced in March. Could these have possibly gotten better? Well, we're gonna find out. Jack sent me some samples. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help me hit 100,000 subscribers for 2024. 2 years ago, when Jack Daniel's 10 year was announced, it was met with a lot of excitement. Then last year, the 12 year was announced, and everyone got all, jacked up for that, pun intended. And for the most part, it got very, very positive reviews. Now, the 12 year happened to be my number 5 whiskey of the year for 2023, while last year's second batch of the 10 year didn't quite impress me as much as the first batch did. So as you may or may not have guessed, batches within the Age series will have slight variations from year to year. This is not uncommon. We see this not only across different releases, but across different brands as well. Both expressions were charcoal mellowed and aged in new, toasted, and charred American white oak barrels first in the upper floors of the barrel houses before being located to the lower ricks to extend the maturation process. Now, they both share the same mash bill as the classic Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey of 80% corn, 12% malted barley, and 8% rye. Moving those barrels from the higher locations in the rick house down to the lower locations allow whiskeys to age longer in cooler temperatures, which reduces greatly the amount of angel share you have. This way you're not losing as much whiskey in the barrel. This is why when you go to Buffalo Trace, they'll tell you all the Pappy Van Winkle, the Ultra Age series, the 20 to 23 years, those are all aged in those lower tier spots in the rick houses where it's a little cooler so it can mature over a longer period of time without getting over oaked. So the details pretty much remain the same. Jack Daniel's 12-year-old Tennessee whiskey batch 2 is bottled again at 107 proof, while Jack Daniel's 10-year-old Tennessee whiskey batch 3 is bottled at 97 proof. Now, they are available in limited quantities across the United States this month in 700 milliliter bottles for a suggested retail price of $94.99 for the 12-year and $84.99 for the 10 year. So still good prices when you look at SRP, but it'll be interesting to see if these get inflated in price like the previous releases do. All right, so we're gonna start with the 10 year. I don't have a bottle of this to compare it to. Last year's, I did not pick it up. I wasn't a huge fan of the 10 year last year. I did like the year before the first release, but that one I shared and that bottle is gone. So we're just gonna test this on how it is, and here we go, 10 year first. This is starting off really nice. You get the Jack Daniel's DNA in there, a little bit of banana note there, but it's definitely more oak forward. And this is reminding me a little bit of the first batch of the Jack Daniel's 10 year, which is a little bit more fruit forward, which I really like. It's got a little bit of a peanut butter vibe going on too, a little peanut butter and jam. Yeah, a hint of a smokiness to it. Yeah, it's kind of like smoked peanut butter and jam, like a maybe raspberry, cherry type of jam. Nice dark fruit flavors. All right, let's give it a try. Yeah, a little bit more of that banana and peanut butter note on the back end of this one. I kind of equate it to like that trail mix that you can buy with the banana chips in it. That's what it kind of reminds me of, but a little bit more peanut forward, and you still get a little bit more of the dark fruit in there as well. I just can't, I'm trying to pick out if it's a cherry, is it a raspberry, strawberry? Kind of, it's hard to break through the that trail mix vibe. All right, yeah, second sip, I think a little bit more. I'm gonna go towards a little bit of a cherry for this one. Cherry and chocolate. A little bit of a nice combination on the back end of this one. So maybe it's like that banana chip trail mix with some milk chocolate chips in it, maybe some dried cherries in it. It really kind of encompasses all those flavors. Again, at 97 proof, it's got a nice proof point, not gonna blow you away here with a lot of heat. Very easy sipping. I feel like the more you sip this, more fruit forward it becomes, which I like. A little bit more fruit and chocolate kind of come to the forefront here. That peanut buttery vibe is still there with obviously that hint of banana that you're always gonna get with Jack Daniel's. Just sometimes it's more prevalent in some products than others. This one, it's right in that midpoint. It's not overly banana heavy, but there is enough to let you know that it is Jack Daniels. All right, last sip on the 10-year. Front of the palate's a little light, not a lot going on. Again, 97 proof. Mid palate is really where this starts to shine. Again, you get that mix of banana, maybe a little bit of peanut butter, and then as it hits the back, you start getting a little bit of spice, definitely some oak, and that dark fruit chocolate mixed combination. This reminds me more of batch 1 of the Jack Daniels 10-year that released 2 years ago. So if you were a fan of that one, then you'll like batch 3 for 2024. So now we're gonna try the 12-year batch number 2, and as you can see, I do have batch 1 from last year, again, my number 5 whiskey of the year for 2023. I loved how butterscotch forward this one was, and I really hope the same holds true here for batch number 2. So let's start with batch number 2, and then we'll go to batch number 1, see if we get any differences. So here we go. Yeah, this smells great. I am definitely getting the sweetness of this. The Jack Daniels 12-year to me is very elevated above the 10-year. I know it's only 2 years older, but the 10-year feels like a little bit more of an elevated classic Jack Daniels product. You know, obviously a higher age, you're gonna get a little bit more depth than what you would with a regular Jack Daniels. However, the 12-year just has this intense sweetness vibe where, again, it just comes in with, I call it like that Jack Daniels extract. It's a little bit maple forward. You get some sweet tobacco in there. You get a little bit of that butterscotch in there too. I love it. It's very reminiscent of last year's. A little bit of like a bananas Foster, maybe a little kick of rum there too, with that extra like maple sweetness. But yeah, the sweetness levels on the 12 compared to the 10, it's pretty, you know, pretty different. So I would say the 12 is far superior in sweetness levels. Let's give it a try. Yeah, the higher proof helps here, for sure. I think there's more of viscosity to it. Yeah, even just coming off the 10 straight away. It's this has, again, a lot more sweetness, a little bit more texture to it. So for this one, you get just a little bit more going on across the entire palate. On the front of the palate, I think you get that nice little burst of butterscotch and toffee there. It's pretty sweet. I do think you get some chocolate on the back end of this as well, but I just think it's a little bit richer, a little bit deeper to that aspect. Yeah, that's good. I'm thinking it might be less sweet than batch 1, but let's see. We're gonna compare now to batch 1. So let's nose batch 1 here real quick. Yeah, and they are different. As far as the noses go, I feel like batch 1 is a tick sweeter than batch 2. Let's try the palate here. Batch 1. What batch 1 has that batch 2 I feel like is lacking is maybe some more spice. I like the spice from front to back on batch number 1 of the Jack Daniels 12-year. I do think they're equally viscous, which is what I think something that matches up with the both of them. They both have kind of the same texture as you sip it. I think batch 2 is a little bit brighter and sweeter, while I think batch number 1 has a little bit more of a spice to it. Let me go back to batch 2 here. Yeah, I think batch 2 has a lot of the same flavors, but the one thing I will say, the one big difference I could find here, guys, is I think batch 2 of the 12-year actually sips a little bit easier than batch 1 does. All right, let's do a quick final breakdown on both of them. All right, so final breakdown on the Jack Daniels 12-year batch 2 and 10-year batch number 3. 10-year comes in at $84.99 SRP, and the 12-year coming in at $94.99. Retail market value, it's tough to say what these are gonna be at. The 12-year was obviously upcharged quite a bit last year. We'll see if that's the continuing trend. The 10-year, I feel like kind of calmed down after the first release, so I expect the same. I expect the 10-year kind of stay hopefully near or around SRP. Availability, as you heard, are gonna be limited, and as far as values go, when you're talking about the SRPs, these are great values. Jack Daniels, whenever they release anything, it seems like we are gonna get, as whiskey drinkers, we're gonna get a really good price for anything limited. I always love that Jack Daniels really does their best to keep the prices down, even on limited releases. The most I pay on both of these are gonna be retail. Both of these are not blowing me away in any sort of way. However, I do like the 12 over the 10. I would expect that the 12-year will still be upcharged a bit, so you may have to pay more to get the 12-year. However, I still wouldn't pay over SRP for either of these. Alternatives for these are always tough because Jack Daniels has such a distinct flavor profile. It's hard to you know, find something that's close. Honestly, if you really don't want to spend the money on these, the Jack Daniel's Bonded and also the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel and the Single Barrel Barrel Proof are just great options. Jack Daniel's has such a nice family of whiskeys to try and taste. You don't always have to go the extra mile to taste the ultra aged versions, even though these are definitely an upgrade over the others. So either these are skip, a try before you buy, a buy, or a buy and back it up. The 10-year, I'm gonna go immediately to try before you buy, but I do think that Jack Daniel's purists will love the 10-year because I do think there's a lot of those reminding factors of just the Jack Daniel's profile. As far as other 10 years on the market, there are some others that can compete with the Jack Daniel's, especially if you're not crazy about the Jack Daniel's profile. Russell's 10, Eagle Rare 10, Henry McKenna 10, all of those if you're just looking at an age statement. However, the 12-year, I still think is the more special bottle out of the two. It's deeper, it's richer, a little bit darker. This year's, I think, is a little less spicy than last year's. So if you want a little bit of a smoother, easier experience, it's not far off from last year, which I like. It's not a huge departure, being it's a 2023 year. So for the 12-year, I think it's a buy, especially if you can find an SRP. The 10-year, I think that's more of a try before you buy. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review for the new Jack Daniel's 10-year batch 3 and the Jack Daniel's 12-year batch 2. Came completely out of nowhere, didn't even know they were coming out, but here they are. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. And if you haven't yet, find me on Instagram. Let me know what you think about these two. Are you on the hunt for them? Did you enjoy them last year? Or are you gonna be skipping these this year? I always like to hear what you say. Sound off in the comments. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey. It is the people you share it with. Cheers. See you next time right here on The Mash and Drum. Take care.